Amazon is down 26%. Its valuation has gone down by $250 billion in market cap. If you take AWS out of Amazon, you're really left with just a website where people buy and sell stuff that has really bad margins. So let's start with Justin. Is it time to buy Amazon given how bad sentiment is on this stock?
I think Amazon is, maybe it's not a turnaround story anymore, but it is a, I guess it's a company going through an inflection point where the company has now expanded its cost structure and needs to rationalize it. My concern is they've had so much time to make the e-commerce platform profitable, and they're still not being able to do that. And so, like, I think we can all see maybe the 10 to 50-year vision of drones dropping off your packages and them killing DHL, FedEx, and UPS, but not in the next couple of years. And so I love the cloud business, but I kind of don't like the e-commerce business anymore. I think it's going to be a drag. And unless I see, and you can't even say that they're cheap unless they cut costs and maybe cut CapEx. So this is one where I'm not super compelled. I have a complete change of heart, and maybe not complete change, but I have somewhat of a change of heart for ROI Club members, and I had a write-up on the Investors Workbook there. But yeah, I mean, you guys can kind of tell what I'm thinking. Like, the e-commerce business is going to be a drag on the cloud business.
Tom, is this a prime time to buy Amazon?
I think so.
Did you see what I did there? You see what I did there?
Yes. Okay. Prime time. I like it.
Thank you.
It's you deserve a raise.
Yes, I just want to be
luckily we pay you nothing. So, so that's affordable for us.
2% on zero.
We're the most expensive low budget show on the internet.
Literally.
So as far as Amazon goes, look, for me, Amazon is kind of the Scottie Pippen of the stock market. They're really good at a lot of shit, but they're not really amazing at anything.
You're calling a $1.6 trillion company Scottie?
I'll explain. Yes. Scottie Pippen is, in my opinion, a top 20 player in the history of the NBA. So that's a compliment. He's the most underrated. He's gone a little bit off the rail as far as this thing he said after he retired. But I mean, as a basketball player, he's underrated. So look, everything I just said about Amazon applies to everything but AWS. In AWS, they're the best in the business. They're number one in the world. It's a staples. It's a gold standard. In retail, right? In broadcasting, like they own Twitch, right? They run Amazon Prime Video, whatever that is. I don't think anybody has that. I mean, they're nice. Prime Video, Twitch is nice. Retail business is very nice, but none of them is as disruptive and as powerful as the AWS business. So I think, and that's why I absolutely like Amazon. I think Amazon should make a bold decision to spin off AWS and make it into a separate company. I believe that AWS on its own is probably a $1.2, $1.3 trillion company on its own, without the retail business, without the Amazon Prime. So separate them, and if they can, swim without drowning, fine. But for me, I look at it and say they're the number one in AWS. Let this thing completely separate out of the mess that is the retail business, the Prime and the Twitch and all that.
Justin, do you think it makes sense to spin off AWS?
That's an interesting question, given the CEO is basically the one in charge of AWS, and Andy Jassy. Like, it blows my mind that, like, maybe the person that created the most value within Amazon was the invention and proliferation and development of AWS, not actually the bookstore and the everything store, which is crazy to me. Like, can you imagine if they didn't just somehow have excess server capacity and then start renting it, and then they develop that into a product? That's like, it's kind of crazy. So I don't think they're going to do it, given how they're structured and given Andy Jassy's in charge. So I don't think it's even maybe worth talking about. But I think the more interesting thing maybe is, for those of you asking me about, should you buy Coupang in Korea, which is like the Amazon in Korea, or like some of the ones in China that people have been asking me about, is like, no, I don't want to buy just the e-commerce business. I've always thought of buying Amazon for its AWS business, and potentially they can make like they can take over the world with e-commerce. I just don't see it in the next 2 to 5 years.
People who are not like Amit, you're in the software development. Justin, you worked many years in the industry. People, I think, don't realize how pivotal AWS has been to changing the way things work. People went from virtualization to AWS. Like
you can start a technology company for literally less than $100 a month with AWS's backend. That's it.
They forced multiple hundreds of billions of dollar industries to pivot away from what they were doing because how transformative they were. And they're still the number one in the business. Microsoft are pushing back, Google are pushing back, but they're still number one. For me, I don't think Amazon is General Electric. A lot of people say, oh, it's the beginning of the General Electric. Definitely not. I think the e-commerce business has value for sure, but it's such a drag right now on AWS. They absolutely got to separate it. And it's like, it's like operating a record label and a barbershop in the same store. Just separate them. They have absolutely no business being in the same company.
Real quick, if AWS was separated from Amazon, would there be an Amazon stock and an AWS stock, or would there just not be an Amazon stock and only AWS?
No, if they spin it off, it's a separate entity.
It's a full separate entity.
That's the whole idea of a spin-off. So the way it works, you as a shareholder, you hold Amazon stock. If they spin it off, what happens in the spin-off? They swing the stock of the new company up to the existing shareholders in the same rate.
Interesting. Okay.
So in your brokerage,
you can do it tax-free in the US. There's reorganization exemptions for corporations that swing because nothing financially changes. So even though it's a taxable event because you're liquidating, it's exempt. You can get an exemption based on the Internal Revenue Code. So it's a non-tax event eventually.
And practically, right? Like if something happened, you might wake up with Amazon A and Amazon B stock in your brokerage like the next day. Right, Tom? That's usually how it, for like those who are just like, oh, I own Amazon stock, what would happen? Like you don't really need to do anything.
No, nothing. It's a non-event, but I mean it will just be healthier for the company. You can really, if you are an Amazon stockholder, imagine what your company would look like if it's just AWS. Like they don't. It's like it's what's happening right now with Disney, as far as the parks and the streaming service. It's what basically where if we see like a full reopening, when you see one industry is paying for the other, at this point AWS is basically keeping the retail business alive. So if the retail business can't survive on its own, it doesn't have a right to exist. If it don't make sense, if it doesn't make dollars, it don't make sense.
Unless like you had a Bezos who thinks that it's like a 2-decade long thing until they can take over the world. Right. I mean, that's the thing about the e-commerce side is there's a potential they completely kill every logistics business out there and have drones swarming and autonomous taxis delivering your stuff. And then you start scaling profitability. But is that a 20-year play? I don't know if I'm willing, as a shareholder, to like hold it because AWS is growing by over 30% a year. I mean, think about the multiple that business will get.
It's a startup level growth. It's insane. But look, there's a reason Amazon invests in companies like Rivian, for example. Rivian isn't their only investment. They're running a very long game with the logistics and shipping industry for sure. That's an interesting play.